I'm going to create a new Model View Controller MVC project. So I'll select File, New, Project, and this is going to be under Visual C Sharp Web. We'll select MVC Web Application. I'll call this Product Manager, and we'll select OK. This is an MVC application. We won't change anything else and let the system generate our product. So what we've just created is a web application that includes both the client and server. It doesn't do very much right now, so we can go in and start this up. Visual Studio contains its own server, and it will start up the server and send us the client on our browser. So here's a client. Notice out of the box we have registration, we have login. We'll learn more about these menu buttons up here. Well, what we'd like to do today is create a CRUD application, an application that will allow us to create objects, store them in a database, create, update those objects in the database, read those objects, and delete those objects. Before we get started creating our application, let's take a look at the anatomy of an MVC project. In particular, we're interested in these various folders here. Models is where we'll put our objects that pertain to the domain. Controllers are those objects that intercept requests from the web client and process those requests. And down here, views represent the client views. Right now, out of the box, we have several different views. We have the home view, the account view. We're interested in the home view, and there are three views available in here. The index.cshtml. This is a file that is interpreted as C#. So the compiler reads these tags, turns this into a C# file that is processed. One point to keep in mind is that the name of these folders really does matter. Anything found in the home folder, for example, will be managed by the home controller. So the controller's job is to interpret user input, decide which view to display, and also handle updates to the database and various other things. Out of the box, you can see that the controller really doesn't do very much. Well, here's our home controller. Notice that it inherits from a superclass called controller that contains most of the logic. You'll notice here that we have several methods: index, about, and contact. These methods handle individual views. So the index method is associated with the index view, the about method is associated with the about view, and the contact method is associated with the contact view. You'll notice that there's a special type of object called a view bag. A view bag is one way to communicate between the server, represented by the controller, and the client. For example, let's say that we want to send a message back to our index page. Well, I'll copy that up here, paste that into our view, and I'll say hello. I'll just say hello. Now if we go back to our index view, I can go up here and see that I'm setting the title for this. In here I have some code representing Bootstrap, which is a Twitter library. Bootstrap's very expressive. It allows us to do many things. We'll talk about Bootstrap a little bit later. But what I'd like to do in here is, and maybe instead of having web hosting display there, I'd like to display the ViewBag message sent back from the index controller method. To represent that this is C# code, I need to use a ampersand, and that ampersand tells the system that what we're writing here is not HTML. Instead, it should be interpreted as C#. So I can go in and say viewbag.message. So that will take the message associated with the controller and display that at that point in the index. Let's go ahead and try and run it and see if it works. So here it is, hello from the index method of controller home. One of the things that we can talk about is this URL. Again, this is the built-in web server running at port 4851. Notice this syntax up here. Home refers to the home controller. Index refers to the method that will be called when we go to that URL. Again, that index method allows us to send the information back from our controller to our index. Well, what we'd like to do is we'd like to go back into our system and create a CRUD application, create, read, update, and delete for products. So let me go into our model folder. Some of the models already out there have to do with the account login and registration, which we'll cover a little bit later. But what I'd like to do is create a new product class. That will be the basis of my domain of products. So if I click on this, right click and say add, I'd like to add a new class, and we'll call that class product. So there's our class product. So let's create some attributes for this particular class. A shortcut you may not be aware of is if you type the word prop and then press the tab key, it will give you a template to type in some properties. One of the properties is suggested that you use the ID, I capital D. It makes things go a little bit easier. This represents kind of the key of our product inventory. Again, prop, and we'll store the name as a string. And just for example, we might have another property representing the, also an int, maybe our inventory. We'll call this the quantity in stock. So there's our product class. Again, probably have a lot more in a real application. Probably have multiple different domains. Well, now that we have our product class, let's create a new controller to handle all the details associated with updating, creating, deleting, and so on products. The way we'll do that is go to the controller folder, right click and say add controller. So this is going to be a controller. There are several templates built in. We want to create a controller with read-write actions so that we can do some things to manage our lists of products or our database of products. So I'm going to select that and say add, and let's call that the product controller. Again, it's going to expect all the views to be in the product view folder. So we'll click add. And this process creates the basis of this template for a controller to do all kinds of things, to view a list of results, to look at individual details, to create individual products, edit those products, and ultimately perhaps delete them. Well, one of the things that we can do, since we really don't want to get into the database part, is maybe we can create a kind of poor man's database to store our products. Our database is going to be a list. So we can go in and create a new variable. We'll call that public static. Static is a keyword that means that it belongs to the class rather than the instances of the controller. In other words, there'll only be one of these databases, no matter how many requests we get, where each request creates a new controller. There'll still only be one database. We're going to use a class called list to store our list of products. And we can specify that this list only will store products. Notice that one of the things I need to do is include the using statement to reference the models folder for my products. So now it knows what a product is. Let's call this list products and create a new list to store our products. One of the neat things that C# 5.0 presents is something called object initialization, where we can not only create a list at this point, but also initialize it with this new set of products. This requires us to start our code block with a curly brace, and everything that we put inside this curly brace represents product. So let's create a new product. A new product. We can do the same thing here with our object initialization. Again, we can initialize the attributes associated with a product by placing them within curly braces. So I can select the attribute ID of our product and assign this to be a 1. And separating these by commas, I can then say name and say that's our soup product. Again with a comma, and then last the quantity in stock. Let's say that's 230 cans of soup. Well, I can continue doing this, and through the magic of video, I'll complete this list of products. Again, this represents our database. Later on, we'll show you how to connect to a real database. Well, here's our product database. Again, a list is a container that stores a group of products. So we can put as many products as we want in the list. Lists are actually very smart. They know how to add new products. They know how to delete them. So we're going to leverage this as our kind of poor man's database. Well, the next thing we need to do is create views associated with each of these CRUD operations. The first operation, index, we'd like a view that would display all of our products. So we can go in here and notice that the red indicates that we don't have a view associated with this, but we can go in and right-click on this method and say add view. So this will be an index view. It will actually build the view for us to show a list of all our products. We do need to tell it, though, that we are interested in building a list of products. So if I can find a product in here, and that's it. It will create a view page to show our list of products. And there's the view that it created. Model is a keyword. It says, please expect from this controller a list of products. IEnumerable is something called an interface to a list. So it's a list of a list implements that interface. So a list we can enumerate through. Well, let's quickly kind of take a look at what's in here. One of the things in there is a way to create a hyperlink using some helper methods that come with the Razor syntax. So that line, create new, creates a hyperlink that will allow us to link back to the create method in our product controller. Some other controls that we have, some other helpers, is to create a table with a header with the display name for our product name and quantity in stock. And we can write some kind of quasi C# code. This is a combination of C# and HTML. So what we're doing is kind of iterating through all of the products in our list. And again, model is a keyword which represents the object list that was passed in the controller. Action links, again, create HTML links that will allow us to click on those links and edit, find the details, and ultimately delete products in our database. Well, what we've done in this particular view, it's associated with the index controller method. We promised this view that we would send a list of products over. So let's go to our controller, again our product controller, and make sure that our view receives our list of products. So I'm going to hand the view as a parameter our products, so it will get a list of products. So let's run this and see what happens. Well, we're back to the home page. Notice that we need to tell it specifically that we would like it to invoke the index method on the product controller instead of the home controller, which is the default. So we need to add the word product here to tell it that we need to go to the product controller. By default, it will select the index method. So we really don't need to add index. It wouldn't hurt if we did. But if I click that now, we can see all of our display of all of our products and the quantity in stock. The other things that you'll notice is that we have some hyperlinks built to edit, find the details, and delete all of those products. We have a little bit more work to do, since if right now we click on Create New, we get an error. In other words, it says, I don't know how to do that. So let's go in and teach it how to create a new product. Okay, so here we are back at our create method. Notice it says I don't have a view that you can use to create a new product. So let's do our same trick over here. We can right click in here, add a view. We want to create the view name to be create, go along with the method. We want to actually create a new create view using the create template, and again tell it that we need to use the product as our model. So that will add a view to our system. One of the interesting things that we have here is it's going to create a form to send back what the user types in as far as name and quantity in stock. So all of this code here represents some controls within an HTTP form that will post this information back to our controller. Well, if we go back to our controller, notice that we have a create view, and this is the view that's returned that indicates the form. when we fill out this form and submit it, that will send a method back to our controller. This is slightly different. It's a post method. Notice this attribute, HTTP post. That allows us to distinguish between what's coming back and what we're initially getting as a form. So this returns the form, this returns the filled in form, and this particular method indicates what happens when that form comes back. One of the nice things about MVC5 is that it will actually send back and package up all of the results and create a new product. So we can change that to product and say call this parameter a new product. So this will happen under the covers. It will get that post request, pull out those form fields, take the data out of those fields, recognize that we're sending back a product, and automatically create a new product. Well, what we need to do here then is just add that product to our list. So here's our list, products, and notice all the things that a list can do. One of the things that we're interested in is this add method. So we'd like to add something, and in fact what we'd like to add is a new product to our list. This redirect to action will then send the view index so we can see a list that hopefully will include our new products. This is a try catch block. In case something goes wrong here, it will just return the index view, of course, without our product because something went wrong here. So let's try that. Again, we'll go to our product controller. We'll create a new one. And let's call this bread. And we have 100 loaves of bread in stock. So we'll, again, these are the form fields. When we click create, it will send it back to the controller. The post method will pick this up, automatically create a new product for us, and redirect back to our index class. Well, to get an idea how this works, let's set a breakpoint at this particular point, and then I'll go up and start debugging. Again, we start over with our product controller, and I'm going to create a new product and call this bread, and call this 100, and create, and notice that it hits that breakpoint. We can drill down into that parameter, a new product, and see that it has the name bread and it has the quantity in stock of 100. However, the ID is not set. One of the things we need to do is set the ID associated with that new product that we just created. One of the things that we can do is take a look at this list. Right now it has 4 items in it. So if we count these, 1, 2, 3, 4, what we could do is count the number of items and then add 1, and that would be the ID of our new item. Well, let me stop debugging, go in here and say, turn off that breakpoint, a new product, ID equals, let's count the number in the list. Lists are smart, they know how to count themselves. And then we'll just add 1 to that. And that should be the ID of the new product that we created. Then we'll add that new product. And hopefully it will update the ID. Well, let's go ahead and run this and see if that improves things. Again, every time we start it, we start with a new list because we turned off the server. And so we'll create a new one. Here's bread. And we have 100 loaves of that. And let's go in and create a new one. This is milk. And we have 23 cartons of that. So if you go over here and let's click the details. Notice that in the lower left-hand corner, it says 5. So if we click that, notice that it's sending over the ID associated with that, and it's looking for the details method in the product controller. So this is the ID associated with that. For milk, notice that it has an ID of 6. So let's go back to our index controller in our product view, or I'm sorry, our index view. And notice down here that we are setting and sending back with that new link the ID of each item. So when we click details, we're sending over a 5, for example, or a 6 to identify the one that the user clicked on. Well, back to our product controller. Let's work on the details method. So here's our details method. Notice that it is expecting an ID to be sent over with that particular method. What we'd like to do is we'd like to, first of all, find that product with that ID, and then send that product back with this view. Of course, we'll have to create a view. So again, right-click, Add View. This is our details view. We have a details template. And again, we select our model class of product. And there's our view. Notice it's expecting a product, and it will display the name and the quantities. All the information about the product will be displayed in that particular view. Well, in our controller, we're not done because that view is expecting a product. We better go find one of those products. Well, what we can do is use some C# methods. This is called a for each method, and it allows us to iterate through a list and select the product that we're interested in. So we can call this the product, and it is in the collection products. So for each product in the list, what we'd like to do is we'd like to compare that product to that ID that was sent over in details. So let's write a simple if statement. If the product ID is equal to the ID that was passed in, hey, we found it. At that point, what we could do is say, hey, we've got the product. Let's go ahead and hand that back to the view. So we could do a return view. And hand it that product so that it could display that. Now, if it goes through and it can't find anything, then we're in a little trouble. Why don't we just redirect back to the index if that's the case? There's obviously an error. We probably need to handle that at some point. But for now, let's just redirect back to the action. So let's build that and run it and see if it gives us what we want. So here we are. We want to go in and take a look at details of soup. And there's their details associated with our soup. Go back to the list, create a new product. Here's our bread. A lot of bread. We'll go in here, find the details associated with bread. So what we'd like to do now is complete this. We have two more methods to complete. The edit method. Notice it is also expecting an ID. And the delete method, which is expecting an ID. It actually will ask you a question if you're sure you want to delete this. We'll get to that a little later. Let's worry about the edit method. Again, notice that there are two edit methods. It's expecting an ID as well as the post method that is going to send information back to the controller representing the changes to the product. So one thing that we can do is change this to product and call this the updated product. The updated product. And again, what we need to do here is we need to take the old product away and add to our list this updated product. So we'll get to that. So what we can do is we can go through our list again. So let me just copy this for each statement. Do something slightly different down here. We have a product coming from our form. And what we'd like to do is iterate through that product. This time, we'd like to have the ID of the product in the list equal to the ID of the updated product, which, by the way, is sent over along with the post request in that parameter. So we really don't need to change anything here. But before we return the view back, what we probably need to do is remove that. So in my list, there's a remove method, and we just tell it what we'd like to remove. We'd like to remove that product, the one that matched the updated product. And then please add the new one with the updates. Let me return view. Well, let's return, since we just did edit that, let's just return the index again. Oops. Okay, I made a mistake. Let me just get rid of this and start over. So here's our remove the product, add the product, and then we'll just move this back up here, and then we'll redirect to action. Otherwise, let's just do the same thing. And if there's a error, of course, we'll just redirect to action. We're still not done because we haven't created the view yet associated with the editing. But we can do our trick. Right click, add view. This time we'd like to create an edit view using the product class, and click add, and there is our new form that will allow us to edit that particular object. Well, one thing that we did forget, and maybe you can think about that a minute, when we add this, that should be updated product. When we add this new updated product to our list, what is its ID? And first of all, what should its ID be? Well, so we have a way to remove the old and add the new product. Let's make sure that we're getting the ID also with the updated product. So again, I'll select debug and start debugging. And we'll go in and take a look at how this works. So I want to edit our oatmeal. Let's say we're missing the name and the quantity in this edit view. Well, let's go fix that. Up to our edit view, notice that it is sending over an ID. So we need to make sure that we get the product that we're editing. And again, we can go through and find that product. Let me just go up and copy this again. Paste that in, and it says, okay, for each product in the product array, if the product ID equals ID, hey, we found the product. We want to send that back to the view associated with this, which is the edit view, and I think it might work now. So let's go back and try to debug again. So here's our cheese. We edit that. Notice it fills these in. Let's say that we sold one of our cheese. We can save that, and notice it hits that breakpoint. At this point, we have removed from our products, there's only 3 of them in there now, and we are now adding a new one, which it's smart enough to include the ID for our updated cheese. The last thing that we need to do to create our CRUD application is to figure out how to do the delete. We like to be able to delete a product that's in our list. I'm going to leave that up to you as an exercise to figure out how to do delete. So this is our introduction to MVC. Certainly much more to learn. Good luck on your assignment.